Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
It is a great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Farhad Shafa, who lives in Walnut Creek in Northern California. He was born in Tehran, Iran, capital of Iran. After finishing high school in Iran, he came to the United States in 1963 and obtained his PhD in neurophysiology from Johns Hopkins University. And it was in 1970 that he was drawn to our beloved Baba. He returned to Iran in 1974 and came back to the United States in 1979. Of course, there are so many interesting and loving stories in between, so if you are interested, you might ask Dr. Shafa, he would discuss it with you if we will have time. He has 17 publications in neurophysiology. He has the author of one very interesting book written in Farsi that he has been kind enough to donate to us several of those books that I'm going to give it to our library here, and whoever would be interested to start reading. As a matter of fact, it has become so interesting to our new Iranian Baba lovers, and as a matter of fact, one of them has made several photocopies of this book, and some of the new Baba lovers have started reading this book and become so devoted to Baba in such a short period of time. So with further ado, this is you and Dr. Farhad Shafa, please welcoming me.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here. And you, sweet one, I remember from India. I didn't know the Dinah Frank thing. I used to talk on the telephone with you.
Oh, goodness.
And your mama, I remember too. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember the two of you together.
Yes, yes.
It's nice to see you.
Well, this is such a surprise to see you here, too. Yes. I should read my program.
This wasn't on possibly interest your group that you don't already know, and I couldn't think of anything. So I thought I'd talk to you about a period of Baba's life that is especially dear to me.
Thank goodness.
And I'm sorry? It's okay? And that period is the Prem Ashram period. Because I've had the privilege of meeting some of the children who were in Baba's Prem Ashram. And you've had the good fortune to have Mr. Vasali here not too long ago. One very special person that I met was named by Baba Chota Baba. He was, his name was Abdullah. And some of you may have heard of him or read about him. I met him later in his life in 1975, I think it was. I was going around interviewing anybody who had anything to do with Baba in Iran. And I got a letter from Erwin Luck, who said that he was doing the same thing. And so we joined forces and we traveled, and one of the people we went to meet was Chota Baba. But I thought that I would begin by kind of setting the background for that period of Baba's work. And I have some notes because my mind doesn't work anymore. I have to refer to notes. You know, Baba was first a school child, university student, and then he was kissed by Baba Jan, and then after he was perfected, he played the role of a perfect master for a while. And that required of him to do certain work that is all chronicled in Lord Meher, and it included preparing his circle. Once that work of a perfect master was done, he initiated a certain set of activities that it was as if he had opened the gates of divinity, of heaven, of God, and allowed this enormous force to pour down. And he began his work with that pool. That first powerful surge happened at a time when Baba also had his Prem Ashram. And I just wanted to underline a few events of his life, just preceding that and during that period. For example, Baba started his silence in 1925, and shortly after that, he started a school. It wasn't the Prem Ashram school, but it was the foundation of what became the Prem Ashram. We're all familiar how Baba never jumped top. He always laid the foundation for every work, and then he built on it. So Baba began his avataric work just about the time that he began his silence. In actually January of 1925, he chose his permanent residence in Meherabad. Then he started a school that he called after his master's name, Hazrat Babajan School. And then he started a dispensary. But then towards the end of 1926, he closed that. And he razed all the buildings to the ground. He said, this was a scaffolding, the work is done, I'm done with it. He did that in November. In December, he said, I want a school. And the Manli were not very thrilled by this idea because they just had one and it was just razed to the ground. So, and Baba said, no, this one is going to be strictly for spiritual education. And so he started the Meher Ashram that later was divided into the regular Meher Ashram and then the Prem Ashram in May of 1927. But again, he began in December a school, which he named Hazrat Babajan High School. This is before the Meher School began. Other events that happened during the time that Baba had Prem Ashram, he built his Samadhi. His Samadhi, which is the only piece of land, the only possession that is still in MeherBaba's name, and which is where all of our hearts long to be this instant. All right, he gave up his writing his name in 1927. Babajan came to visit him April 1st, 1928. Babajan came to Meherabad. She stood on the other side of the railroad tracks, and from that morning, Baba had taken off his sandals. 8:15 in the morning, Baba had taken off his sandals. Around noon, Babajan arrived, and Baba walked barefoot to the railroad tracks and sent his mandali to greet his beloved master. Then later, Baba said about that day, he said, today, and I'll quote, if I can find it, is the most eventful and significant day of my life. That is how important that meeting was for Baba. And it happened during that period. We all know that Sai Baba was responsible for the First World War. And we know that our beloved Baba was responsible for the Second World War. he had a meeting with the spiritual hierarchy in March 10th of 1928, right in the middle of when the Prem Ashram was going, when he designed the Second World War, 1928. And then he made an announcement after that. He made a circular, actually, saying that there would be a war and it would be very bad. Some other interesting events. The force of divinity that he brought down was so immense that he could give God to anyone. And he promised it to several people. One was Pleader. Many of you know about Pleader. One was Savak Kotwal. Did you meet Narju? Did she come to visit here? It was her father. Very sweet story, I'm sure she told you. And when Narju finally gave her earrings, which were the only things that they had not given to Baba, Baba was very grateful, and he said, I will look after your family like my own. And to Savak he said, to you, I give the ocean. Savak met Baba during this period. Pleader is another one whom Baba said, I will give you God. Now, many of these folks were disappointed thinking that Baba did not keep his word, but Baba never breaks his word. Another man that kind of has a bad reputation is Meredith Starr. Is branded by having left Baba, or if anybody can leave Baba, Baba is everywhere. He lets you go over here and catches you over here. But he was another one that was a very, very significant link for Baba's work. Baba laid the cable that brought the East and West together by sending Rostam Irani, Adi's brother, to England under the pretext of bringing children to the Prem Ashram. And that happened again in 1928, April. I wanted to refresh my own memory and yours of the account of someone bearing witness to Baba's work for bringing the East and West together. And it is in Ramju's diaries that I'm going to read from. As you know, Baba sent Rustam in March to England and said, I want Western children to be brought to my school. And Rustam tried very hard, but was very disappointed and because he was unsuccessful. He couldn't find any children. And then he got a letter from a strange person that he had never heard of, saying that I'm willing to, something to the effect that I'm pleased to meet Mr. Irani, and that my house is such and such a place, and please come and meet me. And Rustam had never written to this man, so he thought that, there are many Mr. Iranis in England, but they all know each other. So he checked with all the Mr. Iranis, and nobody had heard of this man. So he said, well, let me go check him out. So he went in there, and this man wasn't in, but his wife was. And now in the book it says Mrs. X. So Mrs. X said, my husband has gone to fetch you from the train station, but you missed each other, so he'll be here. And so Mr. X arrives. And after the usual formalities were over, the gentleman dimmed the light and began to talk as if he were exchanging messages on a wireless apparatus, although he had nothing of the sort about him. In a low and impressive tone, Mr. X began to thrill his already superfied listeners with the following words. I see the master. It's 2 o'clock in the morning in India now. Here he exactly described the master's seat near the Meher Ashram. continues. Other Eastern masters of his, meaning Meher Baba's stage, are not easily accessible and don't like to be disturbed at such an hour. But his seems to be of a very loving nature. I have just told the master that so-and-so will not allow the boys to be taken to India. But the master replied, there is no power on earth that can come in his way. He is not very keen about getting the boys. He wants to lay the spiritual cable between the East and the West. Up to now, the East is looked after by the Eastern masters and the West by Western masters. He wants to join both these sections, and that is the reason why he sent you here. You are carrying with you, without your knowledge, a sort of wireless connection, and it affects all those whom you meet. So, he's saying that Baba is not really all that keen about bringing the boys. He really wants to lay a cable. And actually what happens is that finally he finds some boys to take, but Baba says, forget it, just come. And so this laying of the cable, in the early afternoon meeting, we were talking about some of the things that the seventh avatar does and what Baba did. And this is one of them. He wrapped the world, as it were, in one little ball in his hand. No more East and West. And of course the culmination of it was in the East-West gathering in 1962. It had, maybe Adele, were you there? I thought this group especially exemplifies the East and the West coming together with such a large representation of the East. I don't think there is any other group, even in Myrtle Beach, that has such a wonderful representation. But that was one of Baba's major works, to bring the East and the West together in the process of ushering in the new humanity. That period also saw the most remarkable discourses that Baba ever gave. A few of those are reprinted in Lord Meher, but Baba gave many, many more. And he spelled out the inside and out of divinity like no one else could. And his comely coat, you know, the coat that Baba wore, and Baba said it is extremely significant and is now in the Meherabad Museum. Towards the end of that period, he stopped wearing it. However, during the period that he wore it, it was soiled by tears of love that those children wept on his coat, and was ripped by the children in their love for God. And he had to have it patched and patched and repatched, and he wouldn't have it replaced in any way until he was done with it. So, in short, it seems like that period, he opened up wide the gates of divinity, allowed that enormous flood to come down, and then began his work. The least of which was with these children. Now, Baba began at the school May of 1927, and he said on July 4th, I will have to fast on water for 6 months. When I finish, you may find that I will speak again. I will lock myself up, but everything in the ashram should be put in order before then. There will be a spiritual explosion here in Meherabad. Most of the rishis already know will happen. So it is something that was planned, and it happened. another quote. While discussing spiritual matters with the Mandali and students on July 12th, Baba disclosed, "My work at Meherabad is like digging numerous canals and placing as many people as possible on the banks so that when the spiritual flood is loose, they may benefit by having the divine flow within their reach." And so, in June of 1927, Baba dug a hole on Upper Meherabad and had a little bamboo thing made around it. It was 6 foot by 6 foot deep by 4 feet wide, and there were steps that led down, and Baba secluded himself there, and Pendu used to go there every morning with water to bathe him. And it was so delightful to hear Pendu talk about those days. Pendu loved his cousin so much. He would even keep the shavings that Baba had done on a piece of paper. And anyhow, he was something else. So, in July, 14 kids from Iran went there. Among them was Mr. Vasali. In August, a very serious and studious 17-year-old went there from the southern parts of Iran. His name was Abdullah Pakravan. Abdullah means the slave of God. Pakravan means one whose soul is pure. That just has to be his name. But his father was very old, I think in his 70s, when he had Abdullah. And once in a party he announced that he was so looking forward to a son that will be born to him. And everybody laughed and said, "You're 70 years old, what are you talking about?" He said, "No, I had a dream. I had a dream that this very holy man wearing a white robe came to me and told me that I would have a son and that I would have to name him Abdullah and that he would be living with him. And so I'm sure that I'm going to have a son." And so sure enough, he had a son, but then he died. I mean, the father died, and the son was raised by an uncle, and did odds and end jobs, and finally read about this free school in India, and he said, and because he was poor, he said, "Well, this is free, I'm going to go and study there." And so he went and he joined the other students, and in fact, in the beginning, he was so intent on his studies that he did not join the other children who were on top of Meherabad Hill. He wanted a room to himself so that he could study down below. And so Baba provided it for him. But then towards the time when he was about to be unfolded, Baba persuaded him to go up. And he said, "Okay." Now, the way that Baba showered those children with love is just utterly impossible to imagine. All the reading that I've done and all the descriptions that I've heard, it seems like no father, no loving parent would ever shower that much love on anyone. In Lord Mayor, it says several times in the course of the day, the master would embrace, kiss, or pat the boys. He would play with them, serve them food, and also keep watch over them during the night. On one occasion, regarding the school and the ashram, Baba remarked to Chanji, "Why all this bother? It is just to create a few real lovers of God and one real hero. And for only that, such a big headache, you will never be able to understand its worth." He was their father, their mother, their everything. All right, so another structure that Baba built during that period right next to his samadhi were 5 little cabins that he called the Sadak Ashrams. There were 5 older boys who were deeply affected, and Baba had them in seclusion over there. And later on, some of you might remember that Pleader spent 2 years in one of them, and that is where that story of the snake who came in, and Pleader was silent, so he couldn't tell anyone about it, and the snake would come and drink his milk every day. And finally, I think Badal or somebody saw the snake and killed it. But those structures also date back to that period. One of the people that lived in one of those huts is named Shahriyar Mehrabanpur. Delightful man, he's passed away now, but I had the privilege of knowing him in Iran. He, Baba had told him that you would never be anybody, you will never make it financially this lifetime. You won't be anybody financially. But if you try, you might get somewhere spiritually. And Baba had also said that you were a Chinese general in your last life. And he sure was, wasn't he? You know, we would have these Baba meetings, and it would have to be 1 hour exactly. If I happened to finish my translations maybe a minute early, you're cheating, Baba! You know, he was a very sweet man, in spite of it. And I could, you know, and he would go on silence towards the end of his life. He would just not talk, and he went to his own village towards the end of his life. The only time he would break his silence would be when he was eating and he was past the salt or something. Or when I would go to visit, then he would, you know, chat with me. But sometimes that I would be next to him. And he was very unpretentious, and as I said, a Chinese general type person. You could feel this fire inside of him. You could just feel that he was all ablaze inside. I don't know if you ever felt it, but when you were near him, sometimes you felt that. So Meherabadpur was in one of those, and he was deeply affected. But then later on, he was given certain duties at the Meher Ashram. One of the duties was to be the night watchman, make sure that snakes didn't come, that the children were covered, and all of that. And one night he happened to fall asleep, and Baba heard about it, and he was very upset. Now this man, the Chinese general that he was, had tobacco with him, and if he would ever feel like he's getting drowsy, he would put tobacco in his eyes, so that the burning of it would keep him awake. Once Baba had given him orders to meditate under a tree for a certain amount of time and not to leave unless somebody came and got him. So he was meditating, and it was a monsoon season and started to pour, and such a terrible downpour. But nobody came to get him. They forgot about him. So he sat under that rain for hours and hours. Finally somebody remembered, and they went and got him, and word got to Baba. And Baba said, "Look, even if fire was falling on you, you should not have broken my order." So that is the kind of a person he was. Oh, and then he was given the duty to look after one of the boys who was very much affected. This boy's name was Ali Akbar, not the one we know as Alibab, but a different Ali Akbar, who was also from Iran. This Ali Akbar is responsible for most of the tears on Baba's Kamli coat. He would become extremely physical, and he was in so much anguish and so much heat, physical heat, that he would have to lay his stomach in water, and he would tell, Meherabadpur used to tell me that this Ali Akbar would say, "You have no idea how I am burning." and he would say, "Stop it, stop it, stop it, Baba." And whenever he would see Baba, he would grab hold of Baba, and it would take several people to tear him away from Baba. So another of Meherabad's duties was to look after this boy, and this boy would sometimes get physical and punch him in the nose, and his nose would be bleeding, and we couldn't, restrain him or anything because of Baba's orders. But so the Sadhak ashrams were built at that time, and in this actually in December 10th of 1927, 10 students who were affected very deeply were set aside, and that was the beginning of what later became the Prem Ashram. Now, the day January 1st, 1928 is one of those days that I think, never happens for hundreds and thousands of years. On December 29th, Baba discoursed about the avatar. The avatar can do all that a Sadguru does. He has and prepares a circle as a Sadguru does. But he does one special thing also. The avatar can make a person who is not even in the circle or turn to God, a God-realized Salik. If I get a whim, I may make a few selected boys of the ashram God-realized. At once and again, and God-realized at once, and again bring them back for special duty. But for that, the time must come, and also the whim. Krishna as an avatar, Krishna was an avatar, and he realized and brought down 17 persons who were outside his circle. These 17 were extra God-realized Saliks. And then later he said, "My wish at this time is advancing boys and turning them into Saliks. I'm mostly concerned with boys, and that is why all this trouble. You will see how many of these boys will be saints. The time is very near, and after this work is finished, I will manifest. But the whim must come, and it is very difficult for it to come, but once it does, everything will be automatically done. I will show God to some, and I will make some God. I tell you, some of the boys will see me as I really am. So urge them to go on loving me more and more, and be worthy of this." Oh, is it hard to hear back there? No. Are you having difficulty hearing?
Yes.
Okay, I'll try to be a little louder. I lost most of my voice this afternoon, but
Yeah.
I'll work on it. Okay, thank you. Soon after, the boys of the Prem Ashram began shedding tears night and day, giving vent to their overwhelming feelings and trying to lighten the burden of their hearts. They would suddenly begin weeping in the school or while playing or taking food, and they themselves had no idea why they were crying. By Sunday, January 1st, 1928, the prevailing atmosphere in Meherabad was such that even the gods, the angels, envied these small children. It was the 52nd day of the Master's fast and the 12th day of his seclusion. Baba was sitting in the upper portion of the underground crypt cabin. The birds were resting in their nests, and the sun had sunk below the horizon after saluting Baba. The boys were in the ashram, and all was calm and peaceful. It seems as if Baba had gone into seclusion only for the boys, for at that moment a breeze from the depths of his crypt wafted over them, and for the first time in their short lives they felt God's love. They tasted wine. All the boys of the Prem Ashram together burst forth into such a loud wailing that the sound of their tears could be heard a quarter of a mile away. The residents came running up the hill from Lower Meherabad, and villagers passing by on the road came to investigate the cries they heard. The mandali and teachers did their utmost to soothe the children, but there was nothing they could do, for in truth nothing was really the matter. What they heard was really the unspeakable longing of their souls for God. So they cried for half an hour, and then Baba went to them. Everybody stopped. And Baba said, "Good. I like when you feel God's love so deeply. And you can cry as much as you want, but when I tell you to stop, you should stop." The next day, the same thing happened. The children were overwhelmed, and they burst out crying, but then again Baba came and asked them to stop, and they immediately stopped. So during January, there was this enormous atmosphere, and it was during that period that Abdullah was affected very deeply. And it was during that, again, January, when the meeting with the spiritual hierarchy that I mentioned happened, and Baba sent out a circular that said, "A great war will shortly take place, and when it is raging furiously, I will come forward and manifest as the avatar." Now, let's see, how much time do we have? 9:15. I wanted to now begin talking about Chota Baba. On January 11th, while Baba was discoursing to the boys and the mandali who were seated on the platform outside his cabin, he disclosed, "Those whom I find worthy, I shall attract to the mistress of love, and to them I shall offer the elixir of life. Children, only truth is real. All else is worthless. Try and be diligent. I shall make pure gold from your mixed alloys." And it was shortly after that that Chota Baba began to have his experiences. First, I thought I would read Baba's description of Chota Baba, and then we will read from Chota Baba's own biography and the experiences that he had and he put to paper in 1929. Baba said, "Abdullah's weeping is due to his coming down from the mental sphere to the gross." What happened was that at one point when Abdullah was had been in that state for a very long time, Baba gave him an enema. And the enema helped bring him down, and he began to weep. So Baba says that's because he's coming down. He's thoroughly enjoying that state and never wishes to leave it, even at the cost of sacrificing his gross body, of which he has the least consciousness. His body is so very delicate at this point that it is not able to stand further strain. The slightest shock could be fatal to his body. By this process of cleansing his bowels, I am trying to bring him down to the gross. But he does not want the bliss to disappear, and hence he weeps. Then Baba continues, "Abdullah's present state is like a saint, a peer, on the sixth plane. He now sees me in awe. Although this is not a small achievement, it is not everything that one must achieve. The last and the most important step is still left. He is not one with God. This realization cannot be given to anyone other than circle members, except during avataric periods, when a few extra persons are selected to be God realized. I have in mind to prepare 2 or 3 extra human beings for realization, and Abdullah is one of them. Although he has the sight of God now, he cannot be immediately God realized for certain reasons. And then he describes those reasons. And then he begins to get very technical about how when one goes through that process, the circulation changes and the flow of blood physically changes. Now, many of us might have read in literature how in the ancient times saints used to hang themselves upside down in the wells or so forth. That was because that would give them some relief from what was happening to them. But Baba describes that fully here, which I don't want to read right now. And then Baba says, in the meantime, Abdullah may now be at ease, having achieved the sight. In his present state, he is even worthy of devotion. He is worthy of worship by yogis who may fall at his feet with much benefit to themselves and no harm to him, for he has now been freed from all bindings. If he leaves the body, he will be in me, free from the rounds of births and deaths. If he survives, he will be realized and will prove a greatest asset to his Islamic community, being my special representative. One of the reasons our task then goes into the technical stuff. And then, all of a sudden, Baba says, let's go and have an interview with Abdullah. And here's the interview. Baba asks, have you a mind? Asked Baba. No, it's gone, said Abdullah. I think many of us feel that way. It's not quite the same. Temporarily? Abdullah says forever. Have you any desires? None whatsoever. Do you see me everywhere? Everywhere. Even in the smallest particle. Do you feel any pleasure or pain in the body? No. No sense of the body at all. I don't care whether it remains or drops. It makes no difference to me. The sight is there while sleeping, awake, in all states, always. Do you see me always? Always, without a second's break. How long will you see me? Forever. Are you happy? Yes, perfectly. In unbounded bliss. How long will you enjoy this state of anand or bliss? As long as you are. Forever. If you are everywhere and always, I too am everywhere and always with you. For I always, all 24 hours, see you and nothing else. Can you see anything else? What else is there to see? If left alone, where would you go? When I am to go, I will go anywhere. I am everywhere with you. Do you feel anything while walking here and there, or coming in or going out from your room to here? Nothing whatsoever, no feeling, all automatic. And in his own diaries, Abdullah wrote, I see that blessed being in myself, in others, and all around continuously without a break.